Thanks so much for tuning in. My name is Abe. I'm sitting next to Wade. Welcome to the Wade. This podcast is designed to answer the many questions that we all have. I want to invite you to share this podcast with those that you know so they can join in on the dialogue, and also send in your questions to wabequestions@gmail.com. So here's a question. Obviously, the COVID-19 coronavirus is still prevalent in our world. Someone asked this. In light of the coronavirus, is a shutdown, an economic shutdown, necessary in light of the coronavirus? Does that make sense? So in light of COVID-19, this virus, is an economic shutdown necessary? Because I know a lot of people are being impacted by that. We'll answer that here in a few moments. Okay, Wade. In light of this virus, is an economic shutdown what we've been doing to, what they say, slow the spread and prevent more people from getting it? Is a lockdown necessary, which some would argue, of course, it's necessary. It seems to be saving lives. But they sent in the question. What are your thoughts?
Well, this is a very hot issue. And back in late February and early March, when the governor, then our mayor, made an announcement that, we were going to close non-essential businesses, we were going to ban church gatherings, we were going to close restaurants, and basically shut down our city. I was in favor of it because there were some unknowns out there. There were some things that we didn't know. And let me tell you the one
about
reason.
About the virus.
About the virus. I mean, about the virus, though, there's a lot of coronaviruses out there. A ton. This is a new one, and we didn't know about it.
So give me another example of a coronavirus. What do you mean?
A swine flu.
Oh, so the flu is a
different strains.
So it's different viruses.
Correct.
What
this is called COVID-19. This is a new strain. Okay.
Of a virus.
Of a virus.
The flu is a virus.
Well, not necessarily corona. Some are, but my point is this: the human body has been impacted by coronaviruses in the past. This is just a new strain.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Where did it come from? How did it come into existence?
Something in China.
Well, I think we know it's China. It's Wuhan. Yeah. But some say it's a market where someone ate a bat. I personally feel it comes from a laboratory in Wuhan.
Because someone got arrested, right?
Yeah. I don't know that it was an intentional thing.
Okay.
Some say it's an intentional placement of a biological weapon. I don't know about that. I don't even know that it's engineered. I do know that this particular coronavirus was being studied in the only biological warfare lab that China has in Wuhan. So whatever happened, if it was an accident, if it was intentional, I don't know. We just know it came from China, okay?
Yeah.
So you saw how they reacted to it. And we weren't sure what was going to happen in the United States. Let me tell you why I was in great support of closing down the church gatherings and all that. We've been doing it for 6 weeks.
Yeah, still open, helping people, but shutting down gathering
We're
together.
out all over the place helping people and so on. I was for it because of what's called the surge. And I was concerned that we didn't have enough hospital beds and enough hospital rooms to care for people who would become very sick.
Yeah, because they're sending in ships, New York, California.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So, and my wife, she leads, she's in administration and she's a nurse. She has her doctorate in nursing. And so she's in charge of over 700 nurses. I mean, obviously, I'm listening. Mm-hmm. Okay. But I have since changed my mind. I think we probably did the right thing in the beginning.
Because we didn't know
we
a
didn't
lot
know.
about it.
We didn't know what the surge would be. We
The
didn't
surge,
know.
you mean the death? No. Oh, you mean the surge people being admitted to the hospital?
Correct.
Okay, all right.
People being admitted to the hospital.
And or the death?
And or the
Possibly.
death, but we already kind of knew what the death percentage was, between 2 to 3%.
Okay.
In Italy, it was
People who contracted?
and who die.
Okay.
It's called the mortality rate. In Italy, it was a little higher.
Yeah.
And I'm of the opinion we travel a lot, but if you ever go to northern Italy, you know what they do?
What?
They smoke
All the time?
all the time. Everybody, they're smokers. I mean, smoking to them is like drinking water to us. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, because in America, smoking is kind of demonized.
Word. Well, you've been shamed.
Not demonized.
No,
maybe.
it is demonized.
Yeah, I mean, there's a fear when you're smoking.
Yeah,
people.
in the 50s, you were cool if you smoked.
Yes. So you're saying Italy is like the 50s
Oh,
here in America?
worse.
People just smoking.
Worse.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So your death rate is higher there because of pre-existing lung disease.
Lungs. Okay.
Yeah. So I think what we've seen is you're looking at between a 0.5 to 2.5 mortality rate, somewhere in there, meaning 0.5%.
Out of the 100% that get it,
out of everybody,
0.5
100% to 2.5.
2.5 dies.
All the stats are not in yet. Okay.
Because we don't even know how many people have it. We don't have testing available if
Correct.
everybody could get tested
Correct.
at one time.
And it's well known that 80% of the people who get this coronavirus are asymptomatic, meaning they don't get sick.
I heard it was 25%, but that was a week or so ago.
No. Or put it this way, 80% asymptomatic or mild symptoms.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Okay.
Meaning you have a cough, a little low-grade fever,
Yeah.
okay, and so on. The 20% get real sick, okay? And then the hospitalization rate depends on where you are. And then the mortality rate is fairly low. For example, during the 1850s, cholera had a mortality rate of 50%.
Say, where?
Cholera, the disease,
Oh, yeah.
in the United States, around the world.
Cholera.
Yeah, had a death rate of 50%.
Is that a virus?
It was bacterial disease.
Okay.
But they didn't know that at the time. They didn't know what was going on. We hadn't invented what's called the germ theory. So,
You mean like washing your hands and
yeah,
stuff?
yeah, they didn't know where it was coming from.
Okay.
They thought it was through. They had a word for the air that if you went into a place where you could smell stuff or it was dirty, they thought you would breathe it in. Okay, and they didn't realize that it was from feces that had mixed in with drinking water. People were pouring their sewer out into the drain. It was getting into the well water.
Wow.
Yeah, so, but my point is this. 1 out of every 2 people who got it died.
Wow.
Okay, so throughout history, we've had pandemics where the death rate has been astronomical. Now,
Spanish flu?
Spanish flu. And the Spanish flu is something that I have studied diligently. I have no medical degree, of course. I mean, I've got a lot of friends who do. Not all of them would disagree with me. I'm not giving anybody any medical advice, but I'm a generalist. I understand history. I know pandemics. I can go back to 450 BC, the first Greek pandemic. I can go to 80 AD, 40 years after the death of Christ, or 50 years, and tell you about a pandemic there, to the Middle Ages, the bubonic plague, to cholera, to the 1918 Spanish flu, which started in Kansas, to the swine flu, which killed, oh my word, 10 times more than what's dying now in the coronavirus. Wow. Okay, but.
So probably our ability to see the news instantly, the technology, that is a blessing because we're able to communicate. It might actually cause more fear because if the Spanish flu was going on in 1918, everybody had phones and the internet and the news was just...
To me, that's the bigger issue, Abraham. The bigger issue, the problem we face today is panic. The panic.
Pandemic.
Yeah, and you know what pan means? Pan means all.
Wide.
All.
Okay. All.
Okay. So panic comes from the god Pan, where yeah. So honestly, we won't get off into that.
How did you just pull that out? Just panic comes from the god.
Well, it's interesting.
False god.
Do you remember when Jesus was with Peter and he asked the question, Who do people say that I am?
He says, some say you're Elijah.
Elijah, John the Baptist,
yeah.
all that. But who do you say I am, Peter? You remember that? And Peter said, thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, when Jesus responded, blessed are you, Simon of Barjona, for flesh and blood did not give you this wisdom, but my Father which is above. You remember that?
And
you know
he
where
said, upon
this rock
of your confession.
Not Peter.
Yeah.
The Roman Catholics, I feel, make a mistake on that. Upon the rock of his confession,
he's going to build his church.
He'll build his church. You know where that was spoken to Peter at? The Temple of Pan. There was a Temple of Pan in northern Israel, and that's where they were standing. I've visited it many times. People
false god was
half man, half goat. They were worshiping him there.
And so you think that was very intentional that Jesus said it in that place?
Absolutely.
Wow.
If I told you about that place. Okay, so my point is this. The god Pan frightened people. And basically people surrendered everything to the god Pan lest they die.
Wow.
And Jesus said to Peter, upon the confession that I am the Christ, I will build my church and the gates of hell will not prevail.
Wow.
Okay, my point, Abe, is this. The panic is worse than the disease. And I'll give you a couple of examples. We now have moms who are panicked about their kids getting coronavirus. We now have dads who are panicked about their moms getting out. We now have families who are panicked about getting out in public. People who say, oh, we can't open stores, we can't do this. And I'm like, guys, come on now. It's right there in front of us. We built hospitals and they're empty. Deaconess, Integris in Oklahoma City is closing. Integris letting off people because there's nobody in the hospitals. Okay,
really?
Across Oklahoma. Now, here's the thing. Is this a serious disease? Well, of course.
Okay.
It's serious. You could die.
Because I was going to say, we do see in the news that, like New York, there's a lot of people dying. Hopefully they've hit the apex as we're filming this. Hopefully
100,000 people in the United States have died from the flu this year. 25,000 people as we speak have died of the coronavirus.
Okay, so 100,000 have died from the flu. That seasonal flu that comes?
Absolutely.
100,000 in the U.S.
Yes. But now,
Wow.
Annually, that's what happens. Okay, so if you look at the chart for the last 4 years of 100,000 average deaths to the flu, okay, take a look at what's happened in 2020. Are you ready for this? The flu has dropped through the floor. Nobody's dying of the flu because they're labeling everyone who dies. You're dying of COVID-19. So everybody's in a panic over COVID-19.
Okay, what you're saying, Wade, is probably a lot more scarier than COVID-19 because what you are saying is possibly the media and, people that run that might be feeding us something that isn't necessarily true.
Yeah, listen. For the elderly and people with pre-existing conditions, if you're overweight, you have diabetes, you have a heart condition, you smoke marijuana, you smoke tobacco, you drink, and your liver is in trouble, let me tell you something. Stay home. Isolate yourself, quarantine yourself. You get corona, you could die. But moms and dads, you need your little ones to be immune to the coronavirus. The fact of the matter is, Abe, when God created your body, He gave you the most incredible biological ecosystem on the face of the universe. Your body builds up natural immunity. And what happens is this. In the 60s, when people would get chicken pox, kids in the neighborhood, when they heard, oh, John, he's got chicken pox, you know what they'd do, Abe? They'd all run to John's house.
Wait. So somebody would get chicken pox in the 60s and the kids would go over there to get chicken pox.
Hug him, kiss him, high five him.
Because people don't like chicken pox.
No, but the kids needed to build up their immunity because...
So the parents would tell them, go over there.
Go get chicken pox. Do you know why? Because if you get older and you don't have chicken pox, adult chicken pox can be deadly. So you've got...
I don't think I've had chicken pox before. I'm serious. I can confirm with my mom, but I don't think I've had chicken pox.
Well, I would just say to you, if adult chicken pox happens, it's going to be a whole lot worse for you than it will be for Isaac. Okay, so watch.
Do kids still get chickenpox?
Oh,
Like right now?
Of course.
With all of these immunization shots that they...
It's not as prevalent.
Okay, it's kind of declining?
Yeah, correct. So what happens is in
So you probably don't necessarily believe in all the shots that... I know we're getting off, but we're still on the same deal.
Here's what people are saying. People wait for a vaccine. Wait for a cure. Listen, Abe, if 80% of Americans have no or minor symptoms to corona, once you get it, they're saying, you develop an immunity and won't get it again. In the history of the world, we have only quarantined the sick and the dying. We have isolated them. This is the first time we have ever isolated the healthy. Now, I was for it, Abe. I was for it because
we didn't know a lot about it.
Well, and even though it was corona, I know a little bit about corona, but it came from China. I wasn't sure. You were watching what they were doing, and so on. Didn't know much. I was for it, Abe, because of hospitalizations. But now hospitals are empty. They built hospitals in Washington torn down.
But could some argue that the reason they're empty is because we've isolated and the spread has stopped? At least that's what the New York governor said. Sadly, last night I turned on the news before we went to bed. My wife said, I don't think we should be watching this again because you're right. I think I'm feeding more into what the media is saying at times. I'm watching them and I'm hearing, this many people died today. We don't have time to do all the funerals. The bodies have to just be buried in this big place and people are being thrown in freezers. And I'm like, whoa. So some people might think the reason the hospitals are empty is because we shut it down so early, maybe. And now people aren't contracting the virus to other people.
Well, listen.
Does that make sense? I'm not saying it's right, but some might argue that's why they're empty.
Of course it makes sense.
Because we did a good job?
Absolutely not. Okay, here's the thing. All the figures, all the stats, all the concerns, you start out 2.5 million people are going to die. Then you go down to 1.8. Then you go down to 1. Then you go down to 600. Then you go down to 500. Now you're down to 90. Now you're down to 60. Okay, nobody knows. Sweden, Abraham, has not locked down. Restaurants are open. People are open. They're telling people they're taking it seriously because they know it's a serious virus. Yeah. If you're older or if you have disease, isolate, don't see your family.
Sweden is telling people that?
Yes.
Okay.
Isolate, don't get, and by the way, they're even saying in large groups, they're limiting large groups, but they're not closing down small businesses. They're not closing down restaurants. They're not closing down, they've left their borders open. Now, someone has said, yeah, but their death rate is higher than their neighbors. Well, here's what I would say, their neighboring countries. Okay, here's what I would say. You know what's going to happen? Come this fall, Sweden's going to be a lot better off economically and socially. Because if I'm right, and by the way, the epidemiologist, the head epidemiologist, he's a scientist, medically degreed.
Economically and socially.
Physically, social health, public health.
Oh, so not socially, we're just talking to people.
No, I'm talking about public health in the fall. Why? Because there's going to be a backlash of corona. It's going to come again. Okay.
You're saying you're confident?
Oh, for heaven's sake, absolutely I'm confident.
Wow.
Now, guess who's not going to get it in the fall?
Sweden?
Sweden.
Because you feel like they're building up an immunity?
Correct. Guess who is going to get it?
America?
Everyone who's been on tight lockdown.
So you're almost saying take it now in wisdom so you can build some type of immunity and don't shut everything down because I think
what I'm saying is we have way overreacted. Now, hang on. I'm not even arguing for our church. Our church is going to be fine.
Oh, yeah.
Whether we meet or not.
I've been impressed at the generosity.
Yeah, of
We're
course.
still out doing ministry.
If we don't have to meet for a year, we'll live with that.
Yeah.
But I'm asking the question, why do these small businessmen and women who have businesses, maybe they have at the most 20 people in there in a restaurant that are separated with tables and they clean everything and so on. why are we closing them down? Why are we closing down these small mom and pop stores and letting Lowe's and Walmart, you go out there, 500 people in the parking lot? Well, I'm just saying, Abraham, people die, and you cannot burn down the house to kill a mouse.
You know what, Wade? I want to be careful because I know we're on video, and sometimes afterwards I'll say, well, I see it a little bit differently, and we're filming this. This is Wednesday, and we're going to be showing this tomorrow. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I think I need to be very, very humble about this because as of today, right now, I still have a job. I'm still able to feed my family. And if that was taken away, I wonder how passionate I would be about, you know, open things up right now. I don't know. So for those that are still with the job, just be very careful how we approach it. And those that don't have a job might say, well, if you were in my shoes, maybe you would understand. So I think you're probably trying to stick up for those that have lost, that are losing their businesses, that have lost their job. It seems like the government is allowing unemployment and...
Oh, Abraham, listen, this is the issue to me. This is the issue. Like I said, I was a team player in the beginning. But once I began saying, okay, we need to start opening up economically. We need to start opening up small businesses. We need a plan, and we need to announce it, and we need to do it in May. Oh, the vitriol that came my way in little old Enid, Oklahoma. People like, all you care about is money in your church. And I'm like, no, let me tell you what I care about. I care about a government where the people think that the government's responsibility is to care for them financially. Benjamin Franklin was once asked by a woman, what kind of government, sir, do we have? And he responded, a republic, ma'am, if we can keep it. He would later say, we lose a republic when people realize they can vote themselves money. The idea that we are wanting the government to give us money to sustain our lives is the fall of our republic. It is a move into socialism and ultimately communism. And my concern is that we have lost the principles of what the Bible says, if a man work, he will not eat. And we have gotten to the point where we think we have the power of life and death, that we can shut down the economy and burn down a house in order to protect someone from dying. Come on, folks, wake up. 80% of people who get corona won't even feel it or have mild symptoms. Wow. Those who do get sick, our hearts go out to you. But I promise you, there are people dying every single day, and they're dying by the hundreds of thousands. It's time we wake up and realize you can't always believe what you see on television and what you read in the newspaper. We've got to figure this thing out for ourselves. So,
Wade, I will tell you this, Wade. If what you're saying is true, and we look back a couple years from today, or a year from today, 5 years from whatever, because this is going to be big in history. I'm more terrified if the media, if there's something behind this, a driving force, putting panic in people's hearts, causing possibly more suicide, more people losing their jobs, panicking, and really it could have been handled by saying, hey, if you're pre-existing condition, stay home. If you have this or over this age, be careful, isolate. But you're right, to shut down the whole world and all these jobs.
Hey, let me be clear. The coronavirus is serious.
Yeah, it is serious.
So is influenza. So is heart disease. So is obesity. So is liver disease. Yeah. So is cancer. So is child abuse. So is suicide. All these things, drunk driving, they're all serious. Why on the coronavirus do we shut down the country? And someone says, well, Wade, what are you saying? I'm saying I was in approval of it when we didn't know whether or not the hospitals had enough beds. And now when hospitals are closing and everybody says, oh, let's keep it shut down because we saved the country. Come on, get a grip. Here's what's happening. There's an agenda. And if someone says, oh, Wade, you're just paranoid, You're paranoid. There's an agenda out there. Look at the person saying it. I'm the one paranoid when I'm saying get out there and work and get out there and do what God has called you to do and understand if you need to isolate, but isolate the sick and the unhealthy. Don't isolate the world.
So could we, if the elderly were isolated, could they somehow receive something if they were at risk? I guess that's a different
What's a
podcast,
cure?
different talk.
Sure, you know what they receive?
What?
They receive the blood of people who've become immune.
Yeah, yeah.
Are you?
Did antibodies?
That's antibodies.
Yeah.
Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Okay, so
for the people that get it, maybe like you and I,
the best thing that we could do is get it.
Give our
Then
blood
go
to them.
donate our blood and give it to them. But how can you get it?
Now, Wade, okay.
Go ahead.
So the New York governor, possibly New York could be a little bit different because of their population.
Oh, well, of course. And understand this. New York, Los Angeles, Seattle. Listen, my point is you cannot prescribe the same treatment and the same solution to Enid America that you do to New York and Los Angeles. And Abe, honestly, I was just shocked of the people who, when I just gently offered, hey, here's a possible solution, it was like,
You did that on Facebook. I
yeah,
remember.
I'm killing grandma. And I'm like, are you kidding
Because
me?
maybe some people, as they're watching the news, they're really afraid. So even though you say their truth is their reality, even if it is a false truth, I'm not saying it is. I still want to see over the next few months, years, but they might be thinking,
God does not give us a spirit of fear.
well, okay, when I say fear, I mean good fear. Like the reason we wear a seatbelt, the reason we try to eat healthy, maybe we don't want to contaminate. The reason we try, if someone has the flu, we wash our hands.
Abraham, I get it.
And isolate.
I get it.
So a good fear, like using
yeah,
wisdom.
right. But let me tell you what I'm saying. I'm saying that's not wisdom. I'm using wisdom. In other words, I'm the one concerned for the lives of the people who get sick. I'm saying to all of you out there that are healthy, don't fear the corona. And if you get it, get down to the blood bank and give your blood, and we'll be able to cure the people who might die from it. Does it make sense?
Yeah. You know, the one podcast we did about should a Christian support Trump? And I got some backlash from what I said. I feel like you're going to be on the end, possibly.
Oh, no.
people
Let me
getting
close
fired
with
up.
this. Oh, of course they will. Let me close up. And I'm a little fired up on this as well. I wasn't. I was just gentle, giving an alternative.
Have you talked to people that are suffering economically and
Babe, I've talked to people who've got COVID. I've been out to houses in rooms taking temperature. I don't wear a mask. I don't wear gloves. In fact, I almost want to get corona.
Well, I'd be a little bit careful saying that because some people do say it's still good to wear a mask and practice social distancing.
No, listen to me.
Yeah.
The person who wears a mask, the person who doesn't want to get out, I'm not
But
even saying...
sometimes you wear a mask for other people's sake, not necessarily for yours.
Listen,
with droplings when you're speaking.
Well, of course.
Yeah. But I
of
know
course.
that
And by the way, if I get corona, I'll isolate for 14 days. Does that make sense?
you might have it, but we've never been tested. We don't know.
I'm saying 50% of the country probably has it.
Yeah.
So my point, Abe, is this. I'm not telling other people what they should do. What is concerning to me is that I'm being told what I must do. I'm being told my business must shut down. I'm being told I can't travel. I'm being told I can't. I'm saying, listen, once you give up your liberties, you don't get them back.
So the government can see, look how we were able to shut things down. This could lead to more confidence. You said socialism, and what's the other one?
Communism.
Communism, where essentially they have control.
Well,
they're going to tell us, this is what you're going to do. This is the times you can go to the grocery store. This is how much money you're going to make.
You can go to church, and if you go to church in the parking lot for parking lot service, and we've told you not to go, we'll take your license plate numbers, and then we'll go knock on your house and say, were you at that church? I'm telling you, Abe, the country your kids are going to grow up in is not the country that I grew up in.
Hopefully Jesus comes back soon.
Well, hopefully. I think we're going to experience probably the greatest economic collapse since 1929. This is going to be worse than the Great Depression, absolutely. And it has nothing to do with the virus. It has everything to do with our response to it.
And I did hear Trump. I think he has a plan to open up the country in May, but I know he has pressure from other people.
The governor of Texas is opening up. He said it ought to open up before May 1. Trump does
Really?
have a plan. Absolutely.
So you already see Trump moving towards opening up
And like I
businesses.
said, it's Sweden. Here's the deal.
Using wisdom, using certain boundaries, but we're not going to shut everything down. Tell everybody
you can find a medical expert. I mean, people listen. I'm not a doctor. Never said I am. I'm well-read. I'm a generalist, a polymath. I mean, I understand a lot of stuff. You've been with me talking to scientists with multiple PhDs and MDs, and right? And
couldn't understand nothing
and
y'all were talking about.
Yeah, and I'm talking about ionization, and I'm talking about how cells get. So, I mean, I understand stuff. I'm just saying, folks, just wake up and realize all of us are going to die. Let's protect the vulnerable. I am saying to shut down and lock down the country is the worst thing we can do for lives. That's what I'm saying, Abe.
Okay, so that one guy, and I know we got to get done, that David Camp sent out, that one guy that committed suicide just from the depression of all this. That breaks my heart. People who are
child
losing their
abuse in
jobs.
homes, suicide. The epidemiologist in Sweden says that public health will suffer because you cannot sustain a lockdown.
Why? What do you mean you cannot sustain it?
Do you know how much weight a person gains when they're in lockdown and away from social interaction? Right? Any confessions here? Do you know what happens? Obesity. Look at the numbers. I'm just telling you, from a health standpoint, I'm advocating for lives, but we've got to change our mentality of depending on the government and being like a herd of sheep walking off a cliff. We've got to think for ourselves. You do what you feel like you need to do. And if you need to isolate for a year in your house, we'll bring you food. Put a mask on, get a reverse isolation. You do that if you're afraid of dying of corona, and we'll help you in your isolation.
But what you're saying, don't force everyone to do that. Wow.
That's all I'm saying.
Wade, I really do see what you're saying, because you're not saying that this is not serious, and you're not saying that some shouldn't isolate, and you're not. What you're saying is don't tell every single person what to do. That's what I'm saying. Because this could be the beginning.
That's what I'm saying. Of the
greater
downfall.
Things, worser things to come. Worse things to come. Because worse is not a word, right?
Worse things.
Worse.
Yeah. Hey, and by the way, Abe, thanks for the dialogue. We got a very special Wabe next week that I would invite you to be a part of, and we'll be sharing with you some things. And let me just close, because this is longer than normal, 35 minutes. Let me just say to those of you who are listening, could I be wrong? Well, of course. I don't think I am. Are there medical experts on my side? Absolutely. I can give you numerous ones with PhDs and MDs from MIT, Harvard, Yale, epidemiologists. Are there friends of mine, doctors, who disagree with me? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But I tell you, I don't say what I say in a vacuum, and I don't say what I say lightly. I played the ball game for a month, and now I'm seeing with my own eyes what is happening, and I do think there's a greater agenda, and I think we need to wake up and realize we're about to lose all of our freedoms. Thanks, Abe.
Okay, thanks for tuning in, y'all. I kind of want to do part 2 on this. I'm learning some stuff. This is great. Look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks so much for tuning in.